friends, and welcome back to my channel. So recently on my Instagram, I asked whether or not you guys would be interested in a video on how to navigate going from Canadian nursing to working and living in the States. A lot of you said that you wanted me to make that video, so here I am. So I recently graduated from the University of Toronto, and I am currently living in Indiana, and I'm going to start working hopefully in the next few days. I thought I would help give some tips on how to navigate the process because it can be really daunting. The first thing you need to know is that Canadian nurses write the NCLEX exam. So long as you write the NCLEX exam, you do not need to take any further exams to work in the States. The NCLEX exam qualifies you to be a nurse in Canada and the States. Number two, if there is a state that you know you want to work in, I would suggest going on the internet and searching their nursing board. Every state has a nursing board, and some of them allow you to apply to register in their state once you complete your NCLEX. And these ones don't require a social security number, which is a US social security number. So if there's a state that doesn't require that, you can go ahead and start the application process on their nursing board page. The reason I say that is because this can take a while. If you know you want to live in that state, sometimes it helps expedite the process a little bit. Also, once you go to the border to get your visa, if that state doesn't require you to have a social security number, they are going to ask to see your registration for that nursing board. So you already should be registered for that nursing board before you get to the next steps. It's already sounding really confusing, but I think you'll start to understand it as you navigate the process. Although this seems pretty daunting, sometimes when you apply to a job, they have a team that does this for you. They do the hard work for you. All you need to do is provide them with your proof, so your transcript and all the stuff which I'll get into, and they will go ahead and handle that legal process for you, and that makes everything so much easier. If there's a couple of states you're thinking of working in, go ahead, start applying, interview, and then when you choose wherever you want to work, they might have a team that handle this for you, so you don't have to worry. Keep in mind this process can take 4 to 6 months, and that's with expediting, and expediting costs quite a bit of money. If you follow my Instagram, you'll see how much exactly it cost me. I actually can't remember right now, but that process can take 4 to 6 months. It took me 5 months, and that was with expediting. So yes, and I would say even up to a year if you're not expediting, just because there are so many people looking to relocate right now that they have a lot of applications. Even if you have a legal team that's going to do this for you, you still need to provide them with certain documents. These documents you are going to need regardless. Also, every board is different, so they might require different things for the actual license. I would recommend calling the board and just clarifying if you're not 100% sure. The first thing, if you are Canadian, you will go on a TN visa. In order to get your TN visa, you need to get a visa certificate from CGFNS. You need to submit your transcripts, high school diploma. That was another thing. I had to call my high school and get a transcript and a diploma. I think it was proof from your licensing board. So CNO, for me, College of Nurses of Ontario, had to send proof to CGFNS. There was a letter I had to get them to send over. There was a couple other things, but it's all laid out there, and it was everything you think you would need. So just proof of all the schooling that you've ever done, proof of licensure and wherever you are registered as a nurse. So that happens once you write your NCLEX. One of the things that caused my application to take forever was that my school was so slow at sending the transcript to CGFNS. They said there was a lot of students that wanted this process to be done, but I realized that they literally only had one person doing this, and at the same time they were teaching a new semester. It was just a bad situation. It takes a little bit of time for them to put together because it has to be an official document and you don't want it to be rejected. So it took a while for my school to send it off to CGFNS. And then it takes CGFNS a while to actually update that they've received your documents. I would call a lot, and you'll notice if you call CGFNS, it'll say the line is busy and you have to just keep calling until somebody answers. So it took a long time, and finally they kind of updated my stuff. I kept calling to say already sent in and I want to expedite it, so can you just update it on your system? It can sit for 4 weeks or so before they actually update that they've received it, so that's another annoying thing. You pay CGFNS, I'm pretty sure it's like 600 US or something, and then to expedite it is the same cost or more. So it costs a lot of money. If you expedite it, you'll get the actual certificate in your hands in 3 to 5 days. They'll mail it to you. It's priority. That I ended up doing just because by the time all of this ended up going through, the job in Indiana was asking for me to start as soon as possible, and I thought, okay, you know what, like I've just been wasting a lot of time, I might as well pay the money. I do recommend now in hindsight that you take a job straight out of school and then start the process, because it can take so long that you might as well like start working anyway if you need the money. CGFNS finally sent my certificate, and what that certificate is it's proof that you are qualified to work as a nurse in the States. So they sent that certificate. I need to bring that certificate. I need to bring a letter from my employer that has to be detailed regarding why they need me to work in the States and what my job will be. So my employer wrote a letter. However, this was their first time doing it, and the letter was not detailed enough. So the border officer actually told me that next time they need to write a more detailed letter. Your employer's job to do that, but my employer actually said like, you don't need a letter before I went, and I said no, like looking online, I think we should have a letter. And so I convinced them to write me a letter, and even the border officer said like, this letter is not good enough, but they let it go because, you know, border officers, they can deny you, they can reject you, just depending on their mood. So it sucks, but it's also just the reality. You should have all of your stuff with you. So have your transcripts, have your proof of licensure, have your degree. Another thing is I actually didn't have my degree. My actual graduation ceremony is next week. So what I did was I contacted my school and I had them write out a letter to say that I have all the courses, blah, 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 and I have completed the degree with their signature and whatnot on it, just because they can give you a hard time if your transcript doesn't say that you have the degree, or if you don't have the actual degree letter with you. So that's something you want to keep in mind. So just bring everything you can when you go to the border. Now, going to the border is another thing. If you go online and you search, there are certain border crossings that are actually meant for giving TN visas, and these ones don't need an appointment in advance. Some of them require appointments in advance. So that's another thing. Just make sure you look up whatever border crossing you're going to. I highly recommend going to the border crossings that do not require an appointment in advance and are actually, I forget what the word is called, but they have them listed as like key border crossings that hand out TN visas, which means that they are more trained in giving out TN visas, and they give out TN visas all the time. It'll just be a more hassle-free process than going to a border that doesn't deal with it as much. For me, I brought everything, including my certificate from CGFNS, to the border. I went super early just when they were opening because I didn't want to have to wait. And also on the same day, I needed to apply for my social security number, which I will get into. So I went to the border. They basically, you go across the border as if you were going to drive right in, and you just tell them I'm here to apply for a TN visa. And then they direct you. So an officer comes, and you move your car over to the side, and you basically have to leave everything in the car, your phone and whatnot. Bring your documents, obviously, that you're going to need to go inside. You basically pop the trunk. They do a search on your vehicle while you go inside. So yeah, we went inside. I gave the officer all of my stuff. He took, I would say, about 15 minutes to kind of go do his research on the company and all of that stuff and make sure that it's legit. And he came out and told me the news that it's a little bit like too vague, and then I gave him the details. That's another thing. You want to be really honest with them. If you're not going to be honest, it's going to look like you have something that you're hiding. So I told them, like, right from the get-go, I said, I don't have my nursing license in Indiana yet because I can't apply without a social security number. And the officer was like, no, that's not true. And I said, it is true. I'm not lying to you. So I don't know what to say. Like, I don't have my license in that state yet. I'm waiting to get my TN visa so that I can get my social security number, because to get a social security number, you need a TN visa. So I explained that to him, and he wasn't that impressed in the moment because I think maybe he thought I was lying, but he went back and he did his research, and he came back out and said, okay, yeah, that's strange, but turns out you're right. And then he told me, my letter wasn't good, and I explained to him that it's a new company and all this stuff. And then he said, okay, fine, but next time I need you to do this, 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 this. And then he issued it to me. So altogether, probably took about 45 minutes. There was a fee we also had to pay. The whole process costs a lot of money, just so you know, like thousands and thousands of dollars. So keep that in mind. And then, so we did this in Michigan. So once I had that TN visa, it's just a stamp in your passport, and then you also have another paper. You have to keep those documents on you. I Googled, where can I apply for a social security number in Michigan at that point, because that's where I was. I found an office that didn't need an appointment. I walked in. I said, I'm here to apply. I just got my TN visa. They need the proof of the TN visa that I just got. I gave it to them, filled out a form, and they said they would mail it to my US address. So at that point, I had a US address. I'm not entirely sure if they can send it to a Canadian address if you haven't actually moved. I'm sure they can, but you have to give a reason. They'll just ask you for a reason. Why are you applying in Michigan when you need it for the state of blah, blah, blah. And you just say, well, because I just crossed here. So just tell them everything and they'll work it out for you. So at that point, I had my social security number, I had my TN visa, and then we had actually moved and I was waiting for my social security number to come in the mail. They said it could take up to 2 weeks, and if it doesn't come in 2 weeks, then contact them again and they have to reissue it. So I was waiting. It actually took less than a week. I think it took like 4 or 5 days, and then it came in the mail. And then once I had that, I can go on the Indiana Nursing Board. I could apply for my Indiana nursing license, which I did. So I put in my social security number and I applied there. Then they also had some issues with my application. They required some other stuff. So I called them like every day trying to understand. Every person that I spoke to told me a different story. And so I just kept calling every single day saying like, this is what the person told me yesterday. And basically they said, again, their story was it could take up to 4 weeks, but I just kept calling because I was not understanding what they needed from me and I was getting different information. Also, one of the things, like once I applied, it said I needed to get fingerprints done. There are a lot of different places you can do fingerprints. I think any state you apply to, you have to get fingerprints done. So you'll go ahead and you'll do your fingerprints. They say I think it could take a couple weeks. Mine came back the next day both times. I had to do it twice because the first one got rejected. But they paid for the second one because I wasn't going to pay twice just because it got rejected. But again, that was another thing I had to do. And eventually I called somebody and I said, look, I don't understand, like they're asking for this, this, but I already sent all of this and they want me to resend it, but then I have to pay a fee. And then the lady on the phone was actually really sweet. She actually listened to me and she found all my stuff and said, you have everything that we need. I'm just going to go ahead and give you your license. So she went and did that. So they told me it would take 4 weeks, but it only took a week. And it wasn't because I was calling them trying to get them to do it faster. I was just trying to understand why I kept getting emails saying my application was incomplete when it wasn't incomplete. I guess I got lucky in that sense. So that's pretty much how it works. And now I have a license number in Indiana. And so I'm just waiting on my job to get back to me on when they want me to start. There's a lot of jobs that I applied to that they don't want to hire you unless you're already living in that state. So they want you to independently get your license and do that stuff on your own. It can be a little bit challenging, especially when there's like a catch-22 with, we want you to have your license here, but you can't get your license without a social security number and you can't get your social security number without the visa. It's like, okay, well, how do I do this? There are different loopholes. I mean, I know you can go to a different state that doesn't require a social security number, get your license there, and then apply for the license in the actual state that requires a social security number because now you have the social security number. It's a bit of a process. I know the details for certain states, but it's all pretty much the same process in terms of getting your visa and all of that. Oh, and so the TN visa, I think there's 2 years. They'll give you a date. It's dependent on the contract that you present to them when you go to the border. Again, I don't know if I said TN letter, but also have your work contract with you. They'll put a date on it, and then once that expires, you have to go back and just do the process again. So enter the country as if you're coming from Canada. TN visa is basically for work. They don't want you to permanently live in the States. Like you have to show that you have permanent residency in Canada still, and that you're not in the States to illegally live. But I know that there are employers that will go ahead and transfer you from a TN visa and help you go to a green card. But again, it's a little bit finicky because they don't want you getting a green card from a TN visa because the TN visa is supposed to be temporary and then you're actually breaching the contract of the TN visa, which is a little bit strange. So they transfer you over to a different type of visa before going to green card. But again, it's better to have your employer handle all of that stuff for you. The TN visa is basically just good for work, but you can bring a spouse on it as well. And it's very simple to get. You get it that day while you're crossing the border and then you're good to go. It was a bit of a process. I am not gonna lie, I did get annoyed with the system multiple times and I try to be patient. It's not too complicated once you understand how to do it. I'm hoping this video helped you. I'm sorry if it was a little bit all over the place. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. I'm gonna try and answer them to the best of my ability. I'm going to be making more videos as I start working in Indiana, and I definitely want to do more school as well. So definitely like, comment, and subscribe so you can stay up to date. Thank you for watching.